Hello guys, welcome to Random Recap. Today, we will revisit the series titled The Last Man on Earth, focusing on the fourth and final season. Thank you so much to our viewers who have been patiently waiting for our discussion. Before we start, I hope you will subscribe to our channel. I've noticed that many people watch our content without subscribing, which makes me a bit sad, haha. Alright, without any further ado, let's get into it. The scene begins with Pamela introducing herself after she has successfully killed Pat. As Pat lies on the ground, Pamela introduces one of her good friends, Rear Admiral Roy Billups. However, just as Roy is about to introduce himself, he is suddenly shot from an unexpected direction. It turns out Pat is still clinging to life. After shooting Roy, Pamela quickly finishes off Pat, ensuring he is truly dead. Since Roy has been shot and killed, both he and Pat are given the same burial treatment. However, the difference lies in their burial processes. Roy is simply submerged in the sea, while Pat's head is first decapitated by Tandy and disposed of using a jet ski. Although Pat's body and head are separated, the jet ski ends up moving in the opposite direction, causing Pat's head and body to reunite. That night, Pamela begins to recount how she first met Pat. When she went to Malibu after discovering the whereabouts of the Tucson family, Pamela actually met Pat in Los Angeles. While they were together, Pat noticed smoke, which he believed was coming from the Tucson family. Pat followed the smoke and was surprised to find the family again. However, Pamela, considering Pat to be a bad person, reluctantly shot him. Pamela also shows the jeans that Pat painted for her. As everyone prepares to rest, they suddenly experience a jolt due to a problem with the boat. Since no one knows the boat better than Melissa and Gail, the two of them try to solve the issue, which Gail suspects is caused by the anchor. She presses the anchor button, but it jams. The next morning, they find themselves lost at sea, with no land in sight. Another problem arises, and Gail and Melissa must discuss what to do to find land again. While they are in a state of confusion, Tandy suddenly comes in and complains that he and Todd have broken the toilet. Tandy then shows them the extent of the damage. However, the broken toilet is thrown overboard by Pamela's dog. Instead of fixing the toilet, Tandy meets Pamela and tries to cheer her up. Pamela seems very entertained by Tandy's jokes. While Tandy and Pamela are laughing together, Carol suddenly arrives and inquires about the situation. Tandy truthfully explains that he is just making Pamela laugh, which makes Carol jealous. Carol quickly runs to Melissa and Gail, warning them about Pamela's bad side. However, the situation worsens when Pamela eavesdrops on their conversation. The scene shifts to an announcement by Melissa and Gail, who have two pieces of news. Gail shares the good news. They have spotted land and will likely reach it soon. Melissa shares the bad news. They are not arriving in Zihuatanejo but at an unknown island. With no other options, they agree to approach the uninhabited island. As everyone decides to use a lifeboat to reach the island, Pamela suddenly comes up with a bad idea. After everyone, except Tandy, gets into the lifeboat, she hits Tandy until he passes out and pushes the lifeboat containing the Tucson family away from the ship. Now, the Tucson family must struggle to row their lifeboat to the isolated island. Meanwhile, on the island, someone is watching their movements closely. When Tandy wakes up, he finds himself tied up and shouts at Pamela to release him. However, Pamela ignores his cries. Meanwhile, the rest of the Tucson family has arrived on the deserted island. To ensure the island is safe, Todd, as the only adult male there, ventures out to explore the surroundings. As he approaches some bushes, a hand reaches out from within and beckons Todd to enter. Todd steps into the bushes and soon a man emerges, running towards the women and grabbing their faces one by one. This startles the women, but Todd quickly explains that the man, named Glenn, has been living on the island for 5 years. Glenn was merely checking their faces to confirm they were real humans. Glenn apologizes for his actions and introduces his home, which is nothing more than a pile of leaves he has assembled for shelter. He even reveals that the ground Todd is standing on serves as his toilet. Grateful for the company, Glenn thanks everyone for saving him and asks when their boat will return. This question leaves everyone bewildered. Back on the boat, Pamela begins to interrogate Tandy. She explains that she felt compelled to do what she did to avoid being abandoned alone. However, Tandy, now enraged, curses Pamela for separating him from his wife and unborn child. Pamela remains indifferent and leaves Tandy tied up. As Pamela departs, Tandy looks around for anything he can use to cut the rope binding him. While thinking of Carol, he spots a nail clipper and recalls his own sharp toenails. The scene then shows Tandy freeing himself from the rope. He quickly formulates a plan to turn the tables. Noticing Pamela's pistol is out of her reach, Tandy distracts her successfully. Pamela chases after Tandy, who grabs Pamela's dog and threatens to throw it into the sea. Pamela remains unfazed since her dog is an excellent swimmer, and Tandy would be at risk if she shot him. Seeing his initial threat fail, Tandy makes a more extreme threat. He promises to eat Pamela's dog alive, claiming he loves dog meat. This unusual threat finally compels Pamela to toss her pistol, allowing Tandy to take control. He swiftly turns the boat around to search for the island where the Tucson family is stranded. That night, as Tandy continues his search, he spots a light in the distance. He immediately believes it's a signal from Carol. His hunch proves correct, as Carol is lighting a signal fire that Glenn has helped her build. Shouting her husband's name, Carol never loses hope of seeing Tandy again. The next morning, Carol loses hope and lies down, but to her surprise, Tandy arrives on the island and embraces her. Everyone rushes to greet him, grateful that Tandy has found them. Tandy meets Glenn and quickly suggests they all return to the boat and continue their journey to Mexico. Before departing, they discuss Pamela's fate. Some agree to leave her stranded on the island, but Carol, feeling compassionate, opts to bring Pamela along. In the end, as everyone settles comfortably on the boat, Pamela is seen being towed behind in a lifeboat. When the boat set sail again, Glenn took over the helm, claiming he could navigate the vessel. The group asked how long it would take to reach Mexico. Glenn replied that it would take at least a week, provided they continued to ignore Pamela, who was adrift in the lifeboat. Everyone began to realize that Glenn was starting to sympathize with Pamela. Before any agreement was made, Gail suddenly requested to return to the deserted island, as she had forgotten her sunglasses. Everyone vehemently refused, but they couldn't argue when Gail insisted Todd look for something she couldn't leave behind. It turned out that Jasper had been left behind. Reluctantly, they returned to the island, retrieved Gail's sunglasses, and brought Jasper back. After resolving these issues, they decided to bring Pamela back on board. Grateful, Pamela thanked everyone, especially Carol, promising to occupy the lowest social rank if she was allowed to stay on the boat. True to her word, while everyone was enjoying dinner, Pamela offered various services to make everyone comfortable, but no one accepted her offers. Feeling sorry for her, Glenn brought Pamela a portion of food. Pamela asked Glenn if he wanted her to feed him, but Glenn clarified that the food was for her. This gesture improved their relationship, and they eventually decided to start a relationship. The next day, the long-awaited moment arrived. They spotted Mexico, specifically the region of Zihuatanejo. However, a horrifying sight awaited them. From a distance, they saw dozens of bodies washed up on the beach. When they arrived, Glenn inspected the bodies and, to his shock, found his own child among them. This revelation caused Glenn to change his attitude towards Pamela, becoming cold and dismissive. Meanwhile, Carol surprised Tandy with a room she had chosen for giving birth, but Tandy was horrified when he saw fresh bloodstains on the hospital blankets Carol had taken. As they discussed this, Carol noticed Pamela crying alone. That evening, during dinner, Melissa and Todd were particularly happy to finally be in the place where their favorite movie was filmed. Suddenly, Pamela announced that she would join them for dinner. Puzzled, Glenn asked who had invited her. Carol then stepped in, saying she had invited Pamela. After hearing Carol's explanation, Glenn abruptly left the room, but Pamela stopped him and questioned their relationship. Glenn explained that their relationship was over. He admitted he loved Pamela but couldn't stay with her because the next day, he needed to leave to bury his child properly. Understanding Glenn's sudden change, Pamela realized why he had been acting differently. The next morning, Glenn packed his belongings into his car, saying goodbye and thanking everyone for rescuing him. Just before he left, Pamela shouted and rushed to him, declaring she would go with him, regardless of the consequences. She refused to let Glenn be alone again. They left together to return to Glenn's home. Before departing, Pamela thanked everyone for forgiving her mistakes and gave Carol a bottle of a chemical that could regrow Tandy's lost eyebrows. Then they drove away. The scene begins with Carol inaugurating an abandoned hospital to become their new home. Carol has decorated the hospital to make it feel like a cozy residence. However, just as Carol finishes the inauguration, she faces rejection from Gail and Todd, who decide to choose their own living spaces. Gail decides to stay with Erica, while Todd chooses to stay with Melissa. They leave, which saddens Carol because her chosen home is not appreciated. Tandy tries to comfort her. The scene shifts to Tandy and Jasper, who decide to play with a magnet. Tandy brings some items for Jasper to pull with the magnet and instructs Jasper to press the on button on the truck. Soon, the items Tandy brought are attracted to the magnet. Finding it insufficiently challenging, Tandy brings his armor and uses it for an experiment, asking Jasper to activate the magnet again. When Jasper presses the on button, Tandy is suddenly lifted off the ground. He asks Jasper to press the off button so he can come down. Jasper complies, dropping Tandy harshly. However, when Jasper gets bored, he reactivates the magnet, leaving Tandy stuck above, and then walks away. With no one to help him, Tandy yells when he hears Gail's voice. Sure enough, Gail appears, enjoying her drink, and she agrees to help Tandy. With little knowledge, Gail lowers Tandy, causing him to crash down hard. That night, Tandy consoles a distraught and angry Carol, who is upset that Gail decided to move out. Carol recalls when Gail wore a scarf she made, signaling loyalty to Carol. Feeling betrayed, Carol is deeply hurt. To alleviate the situation, Tandy suggests visiting Gail at her home. They quickly knock on Gail's door and are welcomed in. Carol brings a small gift for her foster mother. After receiving Carol's gift, Gail invites them inside. However, Carol's heart breaks when she sees everyone having dinner without her and Tandy. She asks why they weren't invited, and everyone gives their reasons, which Carol doesn't understand. She decides to leave Gail's house, followed by a disappointed Tandy. The next day, Gail receives a letter from Carol describing herself as an abandoned child. Gail shares this with Erica, who advises her to apologize to Carol. Initially reluctant, Gail feels Erica is taking Carol's side. However, Erica explains she understands the emotions of a pregnant woman. Convinced by Erica's explanation, Gail agrees to visit Carol and apologize. Just as Gail is about to leave for Carol's place, she receives a distress call from Carol through a walkie-talkie. Carol is panicking, feeling she is about to give birth. Gail rushes to help Carol, urging her to stay calm. Upon arriving, Gail is greeted by the sight of Carol cradling her baby. Gail congratulates Carol and asks to see the baby. When Carol lifts the cloth, it reveals Tandy disguised as a baby, yelling at everyone for being late. This frightens Tandy. Soon, the others arrive, congratulating Carol and asking about the baby. To their shock, they see an adult baby with a beard wearing a diaper. Tandy explains why they were late when they needed help, but everyone is angry, finding Carol's prank unfunny. They decide to leave. As they walk away, Gail has an idea to turn the tables. She pretends to fall and calls for help through the walkie-talkie, joined by Erica, who claims she was bitten by a snake. Hearing this, Carol and Tandy panic and try to help. When they hear Melissa and Todd doing the same, Carol and Tandy realize it's a joke and turn off the walkie-talkie. While Gail, Erica, Melissa, and Todd continue laughing at their prank, Todd signals Melissa with the code, Wisconsin. Melissa recognizes it as a danger sign and rushes to Todd, finding him unconscious at the supermarket. She quickly signals the others, explaining it's not a joke. They rush Todd to Carol's place, the only place with medical equipment. They insert a tube to check Todd's heart, hoping to save him. Gail turns on the monitor, and after a tense wait, they see Todd's heartbeat. Soon, Todd wakes up, reassuring everyone that he's okay. The scene begins with an looks very uncomfortable with what Melissa is making him do. Next, the scene moves to Jasper, who finds the piñata at it. Meanwhile, Erica and Gail decide to take Erica's daughter, Dawn, for a drive because Gail is tired of hearing Dawn cry constantly. Gail drives her car at full speed, which scares Erica, who asks her to slow down. But when Gail looks back, she notices that Dawn has stopped crying, prompting her to drive even faster on her subordinates, including the bomb maker. She explains that she knows how her enemies are trying to bring her down, but they have failed. The old woman is shot dead by the bomb maker's accomplice. The accomplice opens the door to reveal a swarm of police outside. The bomb maker is taken away, revealing that the bomb was not in the piñata but in another object. The scene shows Jasper finally hit. The scene begins with Carol sleeping peacefully with her sleep equipment. When she wakes up, she is shocked to find a baby has come out of her without her realizing it. She immediately wakes up Tandy, who is equally astonished. After this unexpected event, they announce the birth to everyone, comparing it to Erica's painful delivery. Carol decides to name the baby Bezequel. After congratulating Carol on the birth of Bezequel, everyone goes back to their own activities. However, Gail decides to check Carol's uterus because she is puzzled by Carol's still large belly after giving birth. Upon examination, Gail discovers that Carol is carrying twins, and the second baby is still inside. Gail advises Carol to deliver the second baby immediately, but Carol refuses, saying the baby will come out when the time is right. Gail continues to pressure Carol, worried about her health, but Carol remains adamant. Gail then informs Tandy, who is caring for Bezequel, about the situation. Tandy, upon hearing the news, rushes to Carol with a look of joy on his face. Despite Carol's reluctance to deliver the baby naturally right away, Gail gives Carol a pill to induce contractions and help the baby come out. That night, Tandy, determined to prevent a repeat of the earlier surprise, promises to stay up and watch over Carol. He declares it to be the most romantic thing he has ever done for her, at least according to Carol. However, in the morning, Carol finds Tandy asleep next to her. Tandy explains that he has hired someone to help him, revealing that Todd is the one watching over Carol. Todd keeps an eye on Carol to be prepared if the baby decides to arrive. The scene then jumps to the evening, where Tandy and Gail are still debating Carol's delivery. Tandy disagrees with Gail's plan to induce labor, but Gail insists on her course of action for Carol's health. Amid their heated argument, Carol, while putting Bezequel to sleep, experiences the sudden birth of her second child, halting the debate. Seeing Carol's second baby born, Tandy and Gail rush to her side. Carol names the second baby Mike, in honor of Tandy's twin brother, even though the baby is a girl. The next day, the house is filled with warmth as the Tucson family now has 3 baby girls. After everyone congratulates Tandy and Carol, Erica asks Todd to take care of Dawn as she and Gail plan to go on a date. Todd, who loves babies, happily takes care of Dawn. Meanwhile, Tandy and Carol peacefully care for their 2 newborns in their chaotic world. This is the end of The Last Man on Earth Season 4 on Part 13. Like, comment, and subscribe so I will soon make a recap of Part 14 for The Last Man on Earth. Thank you for watching.